Good day everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we'd be taking a look at Academy's 135th M1A2 TUSK 2 Abrams. Now this kit in particular has more decal options than the one they released after this, which has individual track links included. This particular kit does not have the individual track links, but it still fares quite beautifully. Now, as usual, we'd be taking a look at the spruce, and along the way, I'd be giving my opinions and feedback on it. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, I'd be dragging out the spruce one by one because there are quite a number of spruce and some of them are really big. So we'd go through them thoroughly just for all of you to see what's inside the kit. Now, first off, we have the upper hull piece and the lower hull, as well as some of the side skirts over here, the side skirt parts, and also the sides which make up the suspension. As you can see, the detailing of the surface is beautifully done, quite clean, and it really captures a very nice look. Also here on the side skirts, as you can see, they did not hesitate to detail those out. And of course, the lower hull, just as is, but you'd be adding more parts here later on. Next, we have the parts for the turret. So we have the bottom half and the top half. As you can see, beautifully molded. You can see the details, and as a bonus, let's see if that can zoom in, the entire surface has the anti-slip coating already molded in. So this would give you less of a job to try and replicate that anti-slip coating. Next, you have the gun mantlets. This is around the rear of the tank, if I'm not mistaken. The front parts of the side skirts. The combat identification panels, or CIPs. Parts of the tow bars. Tow cables right there. And you have also parts for the gun and the coaxial. As you can see, the gun is already one piece molded, so this eliminates a lot of cleaning up, and it comes in 3 parts, so you can really get the individual piece vibe, and you can see more detail to it. So next up, we have the 2 running gear sprues over here, and here we have the road wheels for the Abrams, the drive sprockets, some of the jerry cans, water cans, the torsion arms. Also here we have the a track paddling. If I'm not mistaken, these should go onto the rubber band tracks. I'll show you in a while why I mentioned this. Here we have additional tracks just for turret design. And yeah, that's basically it for these 2 sprues. They're identical and they have the parts with them. There are also the parts for the return rollers and the idler wheel. Next, we have here the turret basket parts. And now these are finely molded, and one should be careful when trying to cut these out, as one can make a mistake and break off a piece. So these are the turret basket parts, the hatch for the driver, commander's hatch, and this particular piece right here would be the underbelly armor that would go beneath the Abrams as part of the TUSK modular kit. Here we have the exhaust and radiator, if I'm not mistaken, which would go onto the rear of the tank. Other pieces are for various parts of the tank. We also have here the smoke dischargers. Next, we have more parts for the turret, as well as parts for the TUSK explosive reactive armor add-on. Here we can see the M250 cal machine gun that goes for the commander. The 30 that goes for the loader. These are the turret cupola ring parts where you'd attach the machine guns. And these others would be the frames for the ERA blocks. As you can see here, the parts that are here, the ones with these outlines, they are for the commander and gunner's shield, cupola shield. As you can see in the box art earlier, there are shields that protect the gunner and the commander from small arms fire while they're popping their heads out. Also here we have the doghouse for the gunner sight, if I'm not mistaken. So that's it for this sprue. Next up, we have more additional parts for the TUSK. Oh no, for the SEP parts on the turret. The turret rings, turret cupola rings, another machine gun here and also here, and various small parts that would go on into detailing. Here we have clear parts, which in particular is a good addition to the kit. As you can see, these parts here go for the gun shields. This part here would be for the commander's vision blocks. And it's nicely done because it's already one whole part and you wouldn't have to worry about inserting them individually. You might be wondering what these individual round clear parts are for. Now the actual Abrams in their wheel hubs, there are clear parts there, or the wheel hubs themselves are clear, so that the crew may be able to easily check on the fluid that's inside for easy maintenance. So instead of having to pop open something, they could easily check from the outside if that particular fluid is already low and they have to be replaced. So more vision block and shield clear parts. And this is a very nice addition to the kit, and it adds more detail. And here's the star of these TUSK versions, the explosive reactive armor that gives the Abrams a more busier look on the sides. Now in particular, the TUSK one uses these square blocks on the sides of the tank, on the side skirts. When you upgrade it to the TUSK 2, you have these slanted tiles, as I'd like to call them, that are attached to the blocks. So it's basically double armor protection, and that's the TUSK 2 version. Both sprues are the same, as this would give the tank more looks to it. Next up, we have the rubber band tracks, and they are nicely detailed. Almost no cleaning required. Nicely done there. And as you can see, there are some distinct surface features. I'm not sure if this is a product defect or an intentional mold, but I'll have to check more of that. But the tracks are quite nicely done. And also, this particular piece right here would be the gun ammo belt that goes on to the SEP V2 version of the kit. Now for the SEP version alone, on the commander's cupola, he uses an M2 50 cal machine gun. But on the SEP V2 version, if I'm not mistaken, it's a Crow machine gun, or a Crow system machine gun, and it has this particular ammo belt attached to it. So if you're going to model the tank, which I'll show you in a bit with the instructions, there's a variation as to if you're building a SEP tank or a SEP V2 version. Next, we have the decals, and boy oh boy are there a lot. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this tank has more diverse options, and you can choose whether or not you use the decals for an Iraqi deployment, or if not, a South Korean deployment. But most of the decals here are for Iraqi deployment and can cover various units that were deployed in Iraq. At the back, we have the PE parts for the turret basket and the front mounted CIPs on the turret. And lastly, we have here the instruction manuals. So this first manual here, I'll cover this later. This first manual here would basically show you how to build up the lower hull with all the various bits and pieces that would encompass the entire suspension and lower hull. And also it shows you, here we go, it also shows you that the assembly of the tracks is not entirely rubber, but at one point, to connect both ends, you have to put a plastic piece and another two plastic pieces to join them together. I guess this was made for more durability in the tracks, as eventually the tension on these two ends might snap it apart. So they probably used a plastic piece for more good measure. And as I mentioned earlier, there's the underbelly armor, that big piece we saw earlier. And the rear exhaust. And the instructions end abruptly here, with the detailing of the upper hull. Why is that, you ask? Because the instruction manuals split into 3. Now, one would continue on with the surface detailing, but it would cover the various versions of how you build it up, whether it's a TUSK 2, TUSK, or a V2. As you can see, more of the parts there, and it shows you where to drill some holes for either the TUSK 2, TUSK, or V2. It also shows you how to assemble the ERA blocks and also the gun. Then over here we have the assembly of the turret bits. We have here the CITV and the blowout panels. Also the commander and gunners turret mounted machine guns and their respective gun shields. And as I mentioned earlier, here's the complete dog house for the commander. So as you can see down there, manual 2 continued on manual 3. So manual 3 shows you the assembly for the turret basket. And as I showed you earlier, there are already PE parts included for the turret basket. You have the power pack right there, stowage bin assembly and accessories. And this also shows you how to assemble a TUSK 2 variant, wherein TUSK 2 ERA are placed on the sides of the turret, as you can see there and there. More of the detail parts, as you can see. And here, as I mentioned earlier, is the particular assembly for the V2 turret. That rubber piece right there was the ammo belt I showed you earlier. And this particular system is already a CRO system, or a crew remotely operated weapon. So there you have it. Most of the parts there are just for the turret assembly and how one would go about the different types or the different options. Next we have manual 4, and it just goes back to some of the prior parts, but this time it ends with the turret itself. So it shows you the final product. If you choose a TUSK, it would look like this. If you choose a V2, it would look like this. Take note with the variety of the commander's cupola, the gun, and also the shielding, and also with the gunners, as you can see over there. Now for the TUSK 2, it would look like this. Everything on top of the turret would be similar to the TUSK. However, there are add-on ERA blocks on the side. So as I mentioned earlier, for the TUSK, they only used the brick-looking ERA, but with the TUSK 2, there are tile ERA on top of the brick ones. Here we have more decal options, say for the 4th Infantry Division, 1st Combined Arms Battalion, 1st Cav, and a NATO Joint Training. Now I would like to point out, and I've seen this on some forums, that let's go back here, that the V2 system, as you can see over here, was never used in conjunction with a TUSK 2 system. So most deployments, either joint training or combat situations, a V2 or a V2 and a TUSK 2 were never used together. As far as I've seen with pictures, it is only the TUSK, SEP TUSK and SEP TUSK 2. Why am I mentioning SEP and not SEP V2? Because the SEP version has around this look. Most of the SEP is interior. The SEP upgrade is interior. But one distinguishing feature would be the turret mounted weapons, machine guns. So the V2 has this CRO weapon, while the SEP has these manual ones. So going back, as I said, a V2 was never used in conjunction with a TUSK 2, except for probably showing the crews how to mount them. But overall, if you are to assemble this kind of tank, either choose a SEP TUSK 2, a SEP TUSK, or just a V2 altogether. So now that we've covered the 4 manual sheets, let me fold that back in. It's time for one of the bonus features of this kit. a colored guide to the decals and the painting. So as you can see here, we have decals for the third ACR, inner rack, and how they are supposed to be marked. Also indicates there the colors needed and where each decal should go. And it also shows you the particular package that was used in whatever division it was deployed with. So as you can see, for the 1st Battalion, they used the TUSK 2, but for the 2nd Squadron, for the 3rd Squadron, and basically everything under the 3rd ACR, they used a TUSK 1, or TUSK basically. Like I mentioned earlier, since the V2 and the TUSK 2 were never used in conjunction, you can see here that the South Korean deployment of a V2 had no ERA on the sides, but they do have that crow system. So what do I think about the kit? Well, from reading forums and other videos, I could see that this kit came along quite nicely, and as I've heard, it is, at least at par, the most accurate Abrams kit in the market. I know there are other brands such as Meng and Riffield models who have also released an Abrams, but if I'm not mistaken, this Academy Abrams is already at par with them. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have comments or suggestions about this kit, please leave a comment in the comment section down below, and let me know your thoughts about this kit, or if I did give out false information or wrong information, please do correct me, especially with the use of the SEP V2 and the TUSK 2 together. But as far as I know, they were never used together, and as the instructions show, there were particular instances where only one or the other package was used in a particular deployment. So anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. If you did, leave a thumbs up, but if you didn't, leave a thumbs down. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. It would help the channel grow. As always, stay safe, keep on modeling, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.